In late January of 2011, thousands of Egyptians began protests that grew into weeks of demonstrations, marches, and rallies. What began on January 25, 2011 as marches in Cairo quickly spread to become the largest demonstrations in the country since the 1970s. January 25, 2011 came to be known as the Day of Revolt. Egyptian demonstrators are calling for an end to President Hosni Mubarak's 30-year reign in the country. Things began to escalate when, in the initial days after the Day of Revolt, Egypt's government cut off access to Twitter and ultimately the entire internet. Anti-Mubarak protesters were using Twitter and other social media as a virtual call to action, planning and coordinating future demonstrations. The entire country was essentially cut off from the rest of the world. While citizens are said to be concerned about the faltering Egyptian economy, which includes rising unemployment and housing shortages, the protesters' primary focus does seem to be on getting Mubarak out of office. Issues such as police brutality, lack of free speech, and corruption are said to be among the key grievances for the protesters. Protesters reportedly feel that if they can bring an end to the Mubarak regime, they can hope for a new government. On January 29, 2011, Hosni Mubarak announced he would dissolve the current Egyptian government. Mubarak then appointed Omar Suleiman as Egypt's new vice president. Mubarak did not, however, step down as president. Within days of the beginning of the uprisings in Egypt, de facto opposition leader Mohammed el-Baradei, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and the former Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency arrived in the country. During a massive rally in Cairo's Tahrir Square, el-Baradei called on Mubarak to step down at once. According to The Guardian, Mohammed el-Baradei is backed by the powerful opposition group the Muslim Brotherhood. On February 6, 2011, after nearly 2 full weeks of demonstrations in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood and members of other opposition groups reportedly met with Egyptian Vice President Suleiman to discuss key issues. According to CNN, Suleiman offered some concessions to appease protesters. Among them, the establishment of committees to ultimately bring about a representative government. CNN said a national committee would be formed soon to work on constitutional changes in the country. Fox News said members of the regime also pledged not to harass anti-government demonstrators and not to hamper freedom of the press or interfere with text messaging and access to the internet. One of the key issues discussed is the dissolution of Egypt's so-called emergency laws, which were put in place when Hosni Mubarak came to power in 1981. These laws give law enforcement in Egypt far-reaching powers for detention and suppression of civil and human rights. According to reports, the Egyptian opposition has long called for the lifting of these laws. Whether these concessions will appease the protesters and ease ongoing civil unrest in Egypt is currently unknown as the situation continues to change. For more information on this topic, visit the link below.